The dinner table went silent. My daughter-in-law had just laughed at me in front of 12 people. Maybe you should leave the expensive decisions to people who actually understand money. A few guests looked down at their plates. My son stared at his glass. I slowly placed my fork beside my plate. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I simply looked at the woman who had spent the last 3 years treating me like an embarrassment. Then I smiled. That's probably a good idea, I said. She laughed again. You see? For once you understand. What she didn't know was that the house we were sitting in, the restaurant she had just insulted me for choosing, and the company she believed belonged entirely to her husband, were connected to a secret I had kept from my own son for years. And 3 weeks later, that same woman stood outside my office in tears. She wasn't laughing anymore. She was begging me. Please. Her voice broke. Please don't let them evict us. I looked at her. Then I asked the question she never expected. Why should I save a woman who was so ashamed to be seen with me? 3 years earlier. My name is Margaret Wilson. I was 61 when my son Daniel married Emily. Daniel was my only child. His father died when Daniel was 17, leaving behind a small construction business, some savings, and a mountain of unpaid bills. I didn't know anything about running a company, but I knew how to work. So I worked. For years, I cleaned offices in the morning, worked at a bakery in the afternoon, and handled bookkeeping for a local contractor at night. I wasn't wealthy, but I kept Daniel in school. I paid his university fees. I bought his first suit for his job interview. And when he told me he wanted to start his own construction company, I gave him everything I had saved. It wasn't much, but Daniel took that little amount and turned it into something extraordinary. His company grew. 1 contract became 5. 5 became 20. Eventually, Wilson Development became one of the most respected construction companies in the city. Daniel became successful. Very successful. And I was proud. But I never asked him for anything. Not a house. Not a car. Not even money. I continued living in my small apartment. I liked my quiet life. Then Daniel met Emily. She was beautiful, confident, and ambitious. When he brought her home for dinner, I immediately knew she was different from us. She looked around my apartment. At the old furniture. The faded curtains. The family photographs. Then she smiled. This is cozy. I smiled back. Thank you. But I noticed what she didn't say. She didn't like it. The wedding. Daniel and Emily got married 6 months later. I paid for part of the wedding. I didn't tell Daniel. I wanted him to believe he had done it himself. After the wedding, they moved into a beautiful house. Daniel told me, Mom, you should move in with us. I laughed. Absolutely not. Why? You're newly married. Emily smiled. Oh, Mom, we'd love having you. I looked at her. She was smiling, but her eyes weren't. Still, I accepted. I thought perhaps I was imagining things. For the first few months, everything was fine. Then little comments started. Mom, do you really need the thermostat that high? Mom, could you please keep your things in your room? Mom, we don't usually eat that kind of food. Then came the bigger comments. One evening, I came downstairs wearing an old sweater. Emily looked at me. You're going out dressed like that? I was just going to the grocery store. She laughed. I thought we were trying to look like a successful family. I looked at her. Emily, I don't need expensive clothes to be successful. She smiled. Of course. But the message was clear. She was embarrassed by me. The dinner that changed everything. 3 years after their wedding, Daniel hosted an important dinner. Several investors were there. Executives. Business partners. People from the city's financial community. Emily had organized everything. The table looked beautiful. Crystal glasses. Fine plates. Expensive food. I arrived wearing a simple navy dress. Emily looked me up and down. Mom. Yes? Couldn't you have worn something a little more? She paused. Modern? I smiled. This dress was a gift from your father-in-law. She immediately looked away. Dinner began. Everyone talked about business. One investor asked Daniel about the company's growth. Daniel smiled. We're expanding into commercial real estate. I listened quietly. Then one of the guests asked me, Mrs. Wilson, what do you think? I was surprised. About what? Daniel's expansion. I smiled. I think expansion is wonderful when you have enough reserves to survive a bad year. The investor nodded. Exactly. But Emily laughed. I'm sorry. Everyone looked at her. She smiled. My mother-in-law has been out of business for decades. A few people laughed awkwardly. She continued. She still thinks like it's 1995. I felt Daniel's eyes on me. I said nothing. Then Emily leaned back. Maybe you should leave the expensive decisions to people who actually understand money. That's when the table went silent. I looked at her. Then at Daniel. He didn't defend me. That hurt more than anything she had said. So I simply smiled. That's probably a good idea. I stood. Excuse me. I walked away. That night I packed my suitcase. Daniel found me in the guest room. Mom, where are you going? Home. Because of Emily? I looked at him. Because of me. What does that mean? It means I finally remembered that I don't have to stay somewhere I'm not respected. Daniel looked ashamed. I'm sorry. I hugged him. I know. But before leaving, I gave him one final sentence. Daniel, never let comfort become more important than character. He didn't understand. Not then. The secret I had never told him. The next morning, I went to my attorney. His name was Richard. He had handled my husband's estate years ago. I placed a folder on his desk. I think it's time. Richard looked at me. Are you sure? Yes. He opened the folder. Inside were documents Daniel had never seen. Years before my husband's death, he had purchased several small properties. Most people didn't know about them. Over the years, their value had increased dramatically. One property became an office building. Another became a commercial complex. Another became the land beneath the Wilson Development headquarters. My husband had placed everything into a private family trust. And I was the trustee. Daniel's company didn't own the headquarters. The family trust did. Daniel's company had been operating there under a long-term agreement. I had never told Daniel. Not because I wanted power over him. Because I wanted him to build his own success. But now I realized something. If I continued hiding the truth, I wasn't protecting my son. I was allowing other people to control him. Richard looked at me. What do you want to do? I took a breath. Nothing yet. Then why reveal it now? Because I want to know whether my son loves his mother. I paused. Or only the version of his mother that he thinks is poor. 6 months later. Daniel's company started having problems. A major project was delayed. Then another. One investor pulled out. Then the bank demanded repayment on a loan. Daniel was under enormous pressure. I knew. But I didn't interfere. I wanted him to learn. Meanwhile, Emily became increasingly desperate. She started selling expensive items. Then furniture. Then jewelry. One evening, Daniel came home looking exhausted. Emily was crying. What are we going to do? I don't know. You need to fix this. I am trying. You're supposed to be successful. Daniel stared at her. I've spent my entire life trying to be successful. Emily became quiet. Then she said, Maybe your mother knows what to do. Daniel looked at her. You said she doesn't understand money. Emily didn't answer. The letter. 2 weeks later, Daniel received an official letter. The company's headquarters lease was being terminated. The building owner was exercising a legal clause in the agreement. Daniel panicked. Without the headquarters, several contracts could be affected. His company could collapse. He immediately called the property management company. Who owns the building? The answer stunned him. Wilson Family Trust. Daniel froze. What? The Wilson Family Trust. He called his lawyer, then his accountant, then his bank. Finally, he found the original documents. And there it was. His mother's name. Daniel drove to my apartment. He arrived without calling. I opened the door. He looked devastated. Mom, come in. You own the building. I said nothing. You own the headquarters. Yes. You own the commercial property. Yes. You've been the majority trustee this entire time? Yes. He sat down. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to build something without knowing what I could give you. He looked at me. And now? Now I need you to decide what kind of man you want to be. He started crying. I failed you. I shook my head. You embarrass me. I know. You let your wife mock me. I know. You watched her treat me like I was worthless. He lowered his head. I was afraid. Afraid of what? Losing her. I nodded. And you were willing to lose me instead. He couldn't answer. Then everything collapsed. Daniel managed to save the company. But Emily wasn't satisfied. She wanted a larger house. More luxury. More status. More security. Daniel finally said no. That was when their marriage began to fall apart. Within months, they separated. Emily moved into a luxury apartment. Daniel stayed at the company. But then came another problem. Emily had signed several financial agreements connected to their old house. When the marriage ended, she expected Daniel to cover everything. He refused. She couldn't. And the payments stopped. Then came the notice. Eviction. Emily had 72 hours to leave the property. She called Daniel. He didn't answer. She called again. Nothing. Finally, she called me. I almost didn't recognize her voice. Mrs. Wilson? Yes? This is Emily. I know. There was silence. Then, please help me. I closed my eyes. Help you with what? They're evicting me. I didn't respond. Please. You told me I didn't understand money. I was wrong. You told me I was embarrassing. I know. You told me to stay out of expensive decisions. Yes. Her voice cracked. I was cruel. I sat quietly. Then she said, please don't let them throw me out. The meeting. I told her to come to my office. She arrived 20 minutes later. No designer dress. No expensive jewelry. No arrogant smile. She looked exhausted. She sat across from me. I know you hate me. I don't hate you. Then why didn't you stop the eviction? Because you haven't answered one question. What question? Why are you asking me? She looked down. Because you're the only person who can help. I nodded. There it is. She looked confused. What? You finally see me. Emily started crying. I was wrong. I said nothing. I judged you. I said nothing. I thought you were poor. I know. I thought you were old-fashioned. I know. I thought Daniel's success came from nowhere. I looked at her. And now? She whispered. Now I know everything came from somewhere. I leaned back. Emily, I'm not going to punish you. She looked up. But I'm not going to rescue you without teaching you anything either. What do you want me to do? Work. She looked surprised. Work? Yes. You want me to work? I want you to learn what dignity feels like when nobody owes you anything. She started crying again. Will you help me? Yes. Her face changed. Really? I'll stop the eviction. She exhaled. But there's a condition. Anything. You will volunteer at the community center. For how long? 1 year. Emily nodded. And you'll help families who are facing the same problems you once mocked. She looked down. I'll do it. The first day, Emily arrived at the community center wearing plain clothes. She was uncomfortable. People there didn't know who she was. They didn't care about her husband's company. They didn't care about her former lifestyle. They only knew her as Emily, a woman who was there to help. Her first assignment was serving meals. An elderly woman approached her. Thank you, dear. Emily smiled. You're welcome. The woman looked at her. You're new. Yes. Everyone starts somewhere. Emily laughed softly. I suppose they do. Over time, something changed. Emily began listening. She heard stories of families losing homes, parents working 3 jobs, young people struggling to afford school, elderly people choosing between medicine and groceries. She began to understand something she had never understood before. Her greatest problem had never been losing money. It had been believing money was what made a person valuable. 1 year later, Emily stood beside me at the community center. She had become one of our best volunteers. She wasn't the woman who had mocked me at dinner anymore. She was different. Humbler. Kinder. More patient. One afternoon, she approached me. Mrs. Wilson? Yes? Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you help me? I smiled. Because you asked? She looked confused. But after everything I did. I remember. Then why? I looked at her. Because if I only helped people who deserved it, I wouldn't be teaching kindness. Emily's eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not. She looked surprised. But forgiveness isn't always about what someone deserves. I paused. Sometimes it's about who you choose to become after being hurt. Daniel's final lesson. Daniel eventually rebuilt his company. But he changed the way he ran it. He created a program that gave apprenticeships to people who had struggled to find work. He opened training programs. He stopped judging employees by their backgrounds. And every year, on the anniversary of his father's death, he visited the community center. 1 year, he brought Emily. They weren't married anymore. But they had become friends. Daniel stood beside me. Mom? Yes? Do you remember that dinner? I smiled. How could I forget? He laughed. I still can't believe I let that happen. I looked at him. Neither can I. He became quiet. I'm sorry. I know. Do you think Dad would be proud of me? I looked at him. I think he would be proud that you finally understand what success means. Daniel smiled. What does it mean? I looked through the window at the people inside the center. It means having enough to help someone else stand. Years later, I eventually retired from the foundation. Daniel took over. But I kept one thing from those days. The old dinner invitation. The one from the night Emily mocked me. I kept it because it reminded me of something important. People can change. Families can heal. Pride can disappear. And sometimes the person who hurts you today may become the person who understands your heart tomorrow. But there was one lesson I never forgot. Never judge someone's worth by what you can see. You may see an old apartment. You may see a simple dress. You may see someone driving an old car. You may see someone who doesn't speak about money. And you may assume they have nothing. But you don't know what they sacrificed. You don't know what they built. You don't know how many people they'd helped. And you certainly don't know what they carry silently. My daughter-in-law once laughed at me because she thought I was poor. Months later, she stood outside my office begging me to save her home. I could have humiliated her. I could have reminded her of every cruel word. Instead, I gave her a choice. And she chose to change. That's the part of the story I'm most proud of. Not the money. Not the properties. Not the company. The change. Because money can buy a house. It can buy a beautiful table. It can buy expensive clothes. But it cannot buy the moment when someone finally realizes they were wrong about you. And if there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this. Never laugh at the person sitting quietly at the dinner table. You don't know their story. You don't know their sacrifices. And you don't know what they might be capable of doing. Because sometimes, the person everyone thinks has nothing is the person holding the key to everything.